Deputy Seamus Healy, 5 minutes.
The European Union has put a huge millstone around the neck of the Irish people. That millstone is called debt, debt and more debt. And the bank debt of €64 billion is not the debt of the Irish people. It is not our debt. We are not responsible for that debt. It is the debt of speculating European banks and finance houses. And those banks and finance houses must be made shoulder that debt. Ireland must get a write-down of the debt because it's a crushing burden on us, on our children and on our grandchildren. It has created huge austerity in this country. We only have to look at the unemployment figures, well over 400,000 unemployed, 14% of the population, emigration at huge levels, cuts to services, increases in taxes, social welfare cuts, pay and pension cuts, increased levels of poverty both for children and the population generally, and huge mortgage distress. That is what the EU has done in relation to debt to this country and to our grandchildren and to our children. And it must be made, the European Union must be made to agree to declare that the bank-related debt be a burden on all countries in proportion to their gross domestic product. It must be mutualised. And in the matter of bank debt, the EU has been singularly unfair to Ireland. And Eurostat itself, the Commission's data agency, has produced figures in relation to this, and the statistics from that agency are truly shocking, absolutely shocking. Ireland has taken a huge hit for the rest of Europe. If you look at the cost of the banking crisis to countries in the European Union, Ireland is at the head of the queue, costing them in excess of €41 billion, ahead of every country, every other country, including Germany. But it gets worse, because if you look at it from the point of view of gross domestic product, the situation is that Ireland again is at the head of the posse. It's costing us, the bank crisis costs are at 25% of our gross domestic product. Again, ahead of every other country, the nearest one being Latvia with 3% of their gross domestic product. Ireland, for instance, is 0.9% of the EU population, and the Irish economy is 1.2% of the EU gross domestic product, yet Ireland has paid 42% of the total cost of the European banking crisis. It gets worse, of course, when you look at it per head of population. And again, these are EU statistics. And every individual in this country, the banking crisis per capita is costing them €8,981. The average for the European Union is €192 per capita.
1 minute remaining, Deputy.
This is absolutely shocking. These figures are absolutely shocking. And of course it even gets worse because the Eurostat doesn't take into account the additional €22 billion from the National Pension Reserves Fund that has been used for the banking crisis, nor the €30 billion from NAMA, which NAMA paid to the banks for loans. So we have a situation where our money is streaming out of the country, our people also streaming out of the country, including many expensively qualified people. And of course this has happened previously in Irish history when British landlords were bleeding the country dry. David launched a plan of campaign to start a land war which was ultimately successful. Connolly, whose execution we commemorate next Sunday, wrote of the need for the reconquest of Ireland. We need a new plan of campaign and a new reconquest of Ireland today. Sadly, the three main political parties are in league with the European Union, acting through the Troika, and they have sold out our economic and political sovereignty. But I'm confident that this generation will not be found wanting in re-establishing this country's well-being, independence and sovereignty.
Now called Deputy